Good evening. It's 6 o'clock, so I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Manitou Springs City Council for September the 17th, 2024. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Good evening. It's 6 o'clock, so I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Manitou Springs City Council for September the 17th, 2024. Allegiance. Sounds like he doesn't anticipate getting here in time to attend any of the meeting, but we might see him pop in. I'm not sure. So anyway,
Okay.
if you'll go ahead and conduct the roll then.
City Council members Judith Chandler,
Present.
Natalie Johnson,
Here.
Michelle Weatherholt,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Nancy Fortune,
Present.
and Mayor John Graham.
Present. Thank you. Okay, so next item would be approval of the agenda. And I would like to call council's attention to item K. As it was published, it says executive session. You notice typically when we do an executive session, we have some reason, some lawful reason for going into executive session. That's not there. And the reason is that we don't have an executive session. That's just a typo. It was carried over, I think, from a cut and paste of a previous agenda. So with that in mind, I would ask that I'd seek a motion to approve the agenda, noting that item K, the executive session, was a typographical error and is to be removed.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Lena, how do you want us to vote? Electronically? Okay, let's vote.
And the motion carries unanimously.
Great. So the agenda is approved. Next would be public comment on non-agenda items. I know we have at least one request to speak, and that is Marianne Romandahl. Marianne, if you'd like to come forward, you have 3 minutes. We'd ask that you start by giving us your name and address. And you'll just sit down there. There's a button in the middle. Press that. A green light will come on. Try to be about 3 inches away from the microphone when you speak.
Okay.
And we typically, we listen, but we don't respond during the citizens' commentary. So you have the floor.
Okay, great. Well, my name is Marianne Romerdahl. I know a lot of you. I live on Cherokee Road at 11 Cherokee. And today I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about some pedestrian safety concerns that I have. Specifically related to walking my children to school. So we moved to Manitou because we wanted to live in a community that's very pedestrian friendly, and we enjoy being able to walk into town and not use our vehicle to go everywhere. And we live less than 0.3 miles away from the elementary school. So we're not even on a school bus route. So every morning I walk my kids to school, and either my husband or I picks them up and walks them home. Because there has been a concern, and other parents have expressed it as well, of the traffic that's on Pawnee Avenue, and specifically where it meets with Deer Path. And I'm sure if you've driven in that area before, you've seen how it can get during school drop off and pickup. I have almost been hit by a car several times by walking my children to school. And obviously that's very upsetting to me. I've been cursed out by people when I tell them to slow down. I'm not using profanity, but they use profanity towards me in front of my children. I get flicked off by people all the time when I tell them to slow down, because it is very dangerous, and there just isn't a safe way to walk to school from where we live in Manitou Springs. Last year I engaged the school and asked if there's something that they could, Manitou Springs Elementary School, and asked if there's something they could do. They cannot because it is off school property. I have gone down to the police station over the last couple of years and just went to the window and lodged a complaint or concern. No one has ever followed up with me. I have not seen any increased police presence in the area to monitor speeders. And I'm also concerned because one of our neighbor's dogs was hit and killed at the intersection while they were walking them. There's been property damage at that intersection because of people speeding and not being careful in that area. And I'm concerned that the next thing that's going to happen is going to be a child or an adult that is walking their child to school. I But I don't want to come with just complaints. I have a couple solutions that I think we could work towards in making this a little bit more walker friendly. There could be a designated walking path along Deer Path Avenue and maybe some of the streets leading up to the elementary school and the middle school and the high school for that matter, like they did on Minnehaha or Capitol Hill, where there's those white kind of like flexible bollards where there's a path that people can walk on. I would love to see a crosswalk at that intersection specifically because there just really isn't a safe place for children and adults to cross the road, not just in school pickup and drop off, but just in general. And we could consider possibly making that intersection a three-way stop. I know that might not be super popular with a lot of people, but it would make it safer. I believe that.
Mary Ann, you're past 3 minutes.
past
If
3 minutes.
if you could sum up, please.
Sure. Either way, I'd be happy to help in implementing any of these things, work with a team to get it together. I would just want to be able to walk my children to school safely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I just received one form of request to speak. I don't know if there's anyone else who wants to speak to a non-agenda item tonight. This would be the time. Okay, I guess not. So let's go ahead and push on. Next item then is the consent calendar. We have 6 items on it tonight. First is the presentation of warrants. Second is approval of the September 3rd, 2024 City Council regular meeting minutes. Third is request approval for the purchase agreement with Bobcat of the Rockies for a skid loader. Second, request to switch open space advisory committee member status from regular to alternate for Nancy Wilson. Then a request to switch the open space advisory committee member status from alternate to regular for David Conley. So the two are flopping positions. And then 6, consider adopting resolution number 1524, a resolution of the city of Manitou Springs, Colorado, approving a land donation of parcels of real property with El Paso County Assessor parcels 7405431003 and then ending 2010, 2011, and 2019, all of which is pretty obscure. But really, that's property above Burns Road. It would be east of Washington and Burns, that little island. We've discussed that in the past. Council, any council member can request an item be taken off and discussed separately. If not, I would seek a motion to approve and accept the consent calendar.
I move to approve the consent calendar items 1 through 6.
Thank you. We have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. We have comment. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I just want to go on record that I will vote approval on this, even though I disagree with item F6, the purchase of the land donation, or not the purchase, but the accepting the land donation. I will vote yes only because we discussed it previously and the majority of council wanted it. Thank you.
Yeah, and I will mention that if this was a separate item, I would also vote in opposition. In fact, I thought a little bit about that, but as we have 2 members of council who are not here, I don't think that would be fair. And I think we've already started the negotiations with the landowner for the donation. So I will support that, although previously I had voted against it and still have reservations, but it's what we decided as a body. So I will support that. Any further discussion? Okay, let's go ahead and vote on the consent.
The motion carries unanimously.
Great, thank you. So those items are approved in bulk. Next, we have item G1, proclamation number 0724, a proclamation recognizing Creek Week 2024. And Mayor Pro Tem Fortune will read the proclamation. And I think we have a couple of guests to speak.
Just one tonight, you're stuck with me.
Oh my goodness.
Big week time, we're so excited.
Thank you. So I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. City of Manitou Springs Proclamation number 0724, Creek Week 2024. Whereas we are fortunate to have extensive and diverse natural resources, and whereas the Fountain Creek watershed is a unique and important asset to the residents of and visitors to Manitou Springs and the Pikes Peak region, and whereas the Fountain Creek Watershed District is a proud partner and collaborator with its member governments, and whereas the Fountain Creek Watershed District is celebrating the 11th annual Creek Week cleanup, which offers volunteers the opportunity to protect, steward, and maintain the Fountain Creek watershed, and whereas Creek Week is a litter cleanup, education, and restoration effort throughout the watershed set for September 28th through October 6th, 2024, the largest cleanup event in the state of Colorado. And whereas nearly 20,000 volunteers have removed over 135 tons of trash during Creek Week over the past 10 years during this impactful program. And whereas Creek Week litter removal and restoration activities will continue reducing pollution in our creeks and connecting waterways, managing flooding, providing a safer drinking water supply, and enhancing wildlife habitat and property values. Further, the City Council of City of Manitou Springs, Colorado encourages businesses, churches, schools, nonprofits, neighborhood associations, youth groups, service clubs, and individuals to form a cleanup crew to volunteer their hearts and hands to this effort. Now, therefore, we, the City Council of Manitou Springs, hereby proclaim September 28th, 2024 through October 6th, 2024 as the 11th annual Creek Week in Manitou Springs, and invite our citizens to help protect, restore, and maintain our waterways by participating in the many activities, programs, and events adopted the 17th day of September 2024 in the City of Manitou Springs, El Paso County, Colorado.
Yay.
Thank you very much.
Great.
And then and we have Ally from Fountain
Yes.
Creek. So Ally, if you'd go ahead and introduce yourself, and I presume you have a few things to tell us.
Couple words, yes, absolutely. Never walk away from that opportunity. Good evening, Mayor, Council, members of the public. I'm Ally Shook. I'm the Executive Director of the Fountain Creek Watershed District. We work to enhance the health of the Fountain Creek watershed from Palmer Lake to Pueblo. We serve 9 member governments, and I want to thank Manitou Springs for being one of our member governments and supporting all the efforts that we've been really proud to present over the past 15 years. To date, we've completed $35 million in creek restoration work and have a robust suite of engaging community programming. Speaking of which, I'm very proud and excited to be here to talk about our 11th annual Creek Week cleanup. You heard those dates, September 28th through October 6th, and we have over 50 events planned in our entire watershed. Over the past decade, as you heard, Creek Week has mobilized thousands of volunteers to remove 150 tons of trash. That's the equivalent of the weight of the Statue of Liberty. Imagine what we would look like without Creek Week. The district supports the crews by providing cleanup supplies, including bags, gloves, grabbers, buckets, and some fun swag. Most cleanups only take a few hours, but can really make a huge difference. We're incredibly thankful to the support from Manitou in all 10 years. This year, Manitou's cleanup is scheduled for Saturday, September 28th, 9 a.m. at Memorial Park. And if that date doesn't work for you, hit up our website. We like to say 9 days, no excuses. Okay, there's a lot of opportunities. I do want to shout out Lisa Musey, who is at Manitou Springs Elementary School. For the past 10 years, she's engaged every one of those grades at the elementary school in a Creek Week cleanup. And so they're going to be celebrating their 10th annual elementary school-wide efforts. Just want to thank you for doing your part along the banks of Fountain Creek that runs right through the heart of your city. And I think we all agree that it adds so much value to the citizens and wildlife that come to visit. This program benefits not only our local communities, but all the way downstream clear to the ocean. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, and thank you for your continued support.
Thank you very much. Council, do you have questions or comments? I think it's
easy.
pretty standard.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, it's a great tradition
Appreciate
and it's good stewardship. So
Absolutely.
it's great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next item. That's first reading of ordinance number 0824, an ordinance amending Title 10 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code by the addition of a new chapter 10.26 to establish an automated vehicle identification system. So we have an ordinance here. Mr. Parker, would you like to walk us through this?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. I was asked to put together an ordinance that would basically allow the city to use what's called AVIS, automatic vehicle identification systems, but really they're better known as photo radar and photo red light. So the photo radar is used for speeding and the photo red light is used for traffic signal violations. And so Colorado, the state has a very detailed and comprehensive statute that governs exactly how municipalities are able to employ these systems and issue tickets and use them. And so what this ordinance basically does is it basically sets up the procedures for how the city can implement these systems, how they can issue notices of violations, and how the city can basically fine people for the violations. Sort of in short, there's only certain areas that you can actually employ these systems in, at least particularly the photo radar. And then you can also define corridors that have sort of historic traffic issues, where you've had community complaints, you've had history of speeding and reckless driving type violations, and you can designate those corridors and you can employ those systems in those particular corridors as well. I could walk you through through my ordinance here, but it basically mirrors state law, and it basically, I know, Mayor, you had a number of questions. Why is it like this and why is it like that? And I didn't mean to be facetious, but my short answer was because the state says so. But generally, I think the state's concerned with local jurisdictions employing these things as primarily for revenue raising purposes versus for actually addressing traffic safety concerns. And so I think the general aim of the state statute is to have specific notice provisions, so people are warned of them, so people have an opportunity to respond to tickets. The fines are, the maximum fines are greatly reduced from what the city could otherwise charge for an officer issued ticket in the presence of an officer. These they cannot be reported to Division of Motor Vehicles, so they don't go on your driving record. There's just a lot of stuff like that in there that the state law requires and that your ordinance basically mirrors. So I could go into more detail if you want, but to be able to even employ this, you have to obviously have to contract with a provider of the service. And I know you had somebody come speak to you from one of the providers, but you probably want to see what options there are, what different providers charge. I know that employing these systems has been a bit of a headache for some of our clients. Just it's tricky getting the whole process in place because you have to have a whole notification process. And then if they don't respond to the notice, you do another notification. And then they have to have a right to a hearing. And then if they don't pay, you have to basically send it out to collections to get collected. So I think it isn't just a simple, hey, we're going to issue these tickets, it's going to be no problem. But it's not like it's that hard. It just takes organization. And so one of the key provisions in this in the state law that has actually tripped up some of our clients with their contractors is the provision that you cannot pay a provider of these systems based on the number of tickets issued or the revenue they generate. And so the state statute says that it has to be based on the value of the equipment provided and the services provided, which is an interesting way of looking at it. What the state's trying to say is you can't get 20% of all of our revenue because that just incentivizes just cranking out tickets just to make money for the providers and for the municipality. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, walk through this. I think the chief might have something to say too. I didn't want to leave you out of it, Chief Otto. But that's sort of the short of it all.
Great. Well, I think we had a pretty good discussion, pretty thorough discussion. So I guess let's just open it up to council questions and see how curious we are.
Yeah, one thing I was gonna also mention to you is that, I also have a resolution drafted that's not in your packet, but it sets the fines based upon what state law allows in your ordinance. So you basically, if you did implement it, you would adopt the ordinance, and then you would basically, implement the fees versus your fee schedule, via your fee schedule, via resolution. So, sorry.
No, that's fine. That's helpful. That explains some things. Council, do we have questions or comments? Nancy?
Yeah, and I probably just got lost in the legalese like I often do.
Yeah, it's easy to
but,
do with this.
But if the notice of violation shall be served within 30 days for in-state and 60 days out of state. So my question was on the appeal process, they have to appeal within 45 days, I think. So I was wondering what am I missing there?
So, okay, so, this general process is you get nailed, via photo, goes to the city basically sends them out what's called a notice of violation and says, hey, you violated this, this law, you're going whatever speed is here, details, here's your fine. Then you have to serve the notice on the violator, either via mail or personally. It has to happen within 30 days for in-state violators, 60 days for out-of-state violators. Then they have to be given at least 45 days to pay or to appeal. So that's how the appeal works on the notice of a violation.
Okay, so would we have to send people registered letters to know when they get the notice?
So that's possible. It has to be first-class mail or personal service. And so typically, the first-class mail, it doesn't have to be registered. It can just be first-class mail.
Right.
So you could do it registered, or you could just do it first class.
Okay,
Yeah, and so part of the reason why they allow it to be served just via mail is because it's a civil offense. And it's not like a criminal offense that requires more due process, like actual service. So,
so then if we don't get it within 45 days, they can just say that they didn't get the notice for, 3 months?
yeah, they could, but it's not required that you prove that they got it. It's not actually required. So once you've mailed it,
Okay,
yeah, and so then they have the 45 days, and if they don't appeal, or they don't pay, then you send out what's called forgetting the term, should know that. Oh my God, I'm having a brain cramp on that. It's another notice that's called that, another notice. And that's the one that if they don't pay, then you basically send out a final order. They get all these notices. So it's not like they just get one opportunity. So, yeah, you're welcome.
Judith?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a signage question and forgive me, this is legalese, which is a language I don't speak, but signage is listed 3 times throughout the ordinance. And I just wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page with regards specifically how many feet. So the first time that the signage is mentioned is on page 3 of 7, and it is 10.26.040, item C. And it says signage, the city shall place an appropriate temporary or permanent sign in a conspicuous place not fewer than 300 feet before the area in which the automated vehicle identification system is to be used, to notify the public that an automated vehicle identification system is in use immediately ahead. And then on the very next page, on page 4, 10.26.040 disobedience.
Yep.
On paragraph B, item 1, it says such sign shall be placed in a conspicuous location not less than 200 feet and not more than 500 feet before the automated vehicle identification system.
Yep. And so,
So can you just make sure
Yeah.
in my brain that those are copacetic?
yeah, absolutely. So this is the same question the mayor had asked via email a couple days ago or yesterday. And so my favorite thing is it took me a lot of work trying to read through the statute. I think it's one statutory section that's about 12 pages long with about 40 subsections. And so it is tricky. And so we've distilled it down in your ordinance. And so what really happens here is the first one applies to speeding violations with the photo radar. That's the requirement the state's put in place for photo radar use.
Okay.
Second one, on 1026-040B1 is for photo red light. So different type of equipment, different signage requirement. Don't really know why they've chosen the different requirements. I think they could have been a little more consistent, made it a little bit easier, but that's what the state's got in place. And the third one you mentioned applies to when you're using it in one of the automated vehicle identification corridors, which is the area that has a historic traffic issues that you have to designate in the ordinance. So it's like you're gonna, I mean, I didn't do the Venn diagram, but you're gonna have to do, if it's here, it's gotta have it and kind of figure out where they overlap and it's gonna be right, but they're all for different photo radar, photo red light, and then the corridor. So.
Well, thank you for that clarification.
you're
I knew you probably had an answer. It just was all kind of muddled in my head. And speaking of the automated vehicle corridors, you listed 5 here under 10.26.050, paragraph A.
Yep.
Are these corridors street specific? And I say this specifically for example, El Paso Boulevard. I would request that the El Paso Boulevard corridor include Becker's Lane from El Paso to the trading post. And so I'm wondering, how detailed are these corridors? And I just want to make sure they're all inclusive to this main areas where there's specific traffic issues.
Yeah, and so like I said, this is something that, we basically said to Denise and to Chief Otto, what do you want to include for corridors? What are appropriate corridors? Because you have to be able to justify it under the law. And these are the ones they selected. So I'll let Denise or Chief Otto respond to what they thought the reasoning was for these corridors.
Becker's is automatically on there because it's right next to a park and it's residential. So these are the ones that did not meet that criteria. All the others in the city have met the criteria. But El Paso, there were areas that did not meet it. So we just put the entire El Paso corridor. So Becker's would automatically be included.
Yeah.
Thank you for making that clarification, because in the first draft of the ordinance, it made it sound like a park. If it was near a park, it had to be, right adjacent to a park, and Becker's Lane really it's kind of between parks.
Well, it goes
So-
close to that one, right by Fields, it has that area. Plus it has the school baseball field. And then soon as you pass, you have a residential area.
So is it safe to let the residents know that these corridors are just this is the main road, and the traffic issues stemming from that adjacent streets will also be included?
Yes.
I'm asking this because I've had several residents ask me, is it important to have it inclusive in the ordinance and spelled out? I'd like to
Yeah.
see it.
We'd have to list every single road in the city then.
Okay.
And so that's, it's per our understanding, and if I've missed it, please, but these are the ones that did not meet that criteria next to a park, next to a school, or next, right in the residential area. These were the 5 that we felt that did not meet that criteria.
So I can add to that. I think the law also requires, before you actually begin issuing citations under this system, that you provide 30 days public outreach notice on the website about the program. And then the first 30 days of tickets can only be warnings. And so I think the city I would suggest that the city have their website explaining the whole system, and then a map showing all the areas where it could be. I think it would probably be pretty helpful. And then people, oh yeah, this is a street where it could be on, this is a street where it could be on. And there's also going to be the signage on those streets as well. So I think one of the concerns with trying to list areas that are encompassed in here specifically is that it could be a pretty epic job, other than saying, here's the map on the website you can look at.
Thank you. And my last question is regarding to just write down paragraph C. Is it a state requirement that the city shall illustrate through data collected within the past 5 years, crashes, speeding, reckless driving, or community complaints on the streets designated? So that's a state
Yeah, I
requirement.
definitely would not
Could
have
you,
made that one up.
could you, yeah, so we have to provide that criteria for the previous 5 years? Explain that section to me.
Yeah, so it would basically be for the 5 years commencing prior to it being implemented. And so these previous past 5 years, you'd have to be able to justify making those corridors, the corridors that are part of the system based on those issues. Yeah.
And I think with that, the one is or, not and, or customer or resident complaints, et cetera. So we're pulling all of those that we've had, the emails, the concerns. So we just have that in a file. So if somebody comes and says, we don't have it, we'll say, yes, we do. And here are all the ones.
Council, other questions for Jeff this time? Okay, let's give Chief Otto an opportunity. Chief, do you want to speak to this?
Yes. Well, I'm glad Jeff's here to explain all that stuff. I've been talking with Denise and Jeff, and we're trying to figure out how to make this thing work. It's pretty intensive. I think Jeff alluded to that earlier. There's a lot of steps that we have to go through as far as the 5 years of data and stuff like that. We can get that compiled and take care of that. That shouldn't be too big of an issue. When I was reading through the stuff that Jeff prepared, he answered a lot of my questions too. The 200 to the 500 feet thing, that's traffic control devices, correct?
Yep.
And that's stop signs, stop lights.
Right.
And all those. That's where when I read that too, it's like, well, there are two different things here. But we figured that out. What I wanted to mainly talk about, and it's briefly, I met with a couple vendors last week and got kind of a new perspective on how this is going to work. I actually spoke with the vendor of they're called Traffic Logics. They're the ones who sell the speed cameras. And then another vendor like we had brought in a couple weeks ago from the EEC. They came from out of the way when I reached out to them to learn about their products and what they could do. They went out of the way, came down and met with me. I think it was Thursday or Friday of last week for a couple hours. Everything that the two Russells, if you remember, told us was pretty much true. I think the Russells told us it was going to be $14 per ticket. And I think this company I was speaking with the other day, they're $12. Now, I'm not really sure, Jeff, how all this really works.
Yeah.
You can't pay. We can't use the money generated by this program, correct? To pay for anything?
That's generally what it says, although I mean, that's a bit of probably a little bit of misleading because, you know, the money that we get is going to go into the general fund.
Right.
And so I mean, you can say, oh yeah, these dollars aren't being used
Just
for it.
yes, got
So
it.
it isn't really, that's not the really important part. The important part is you can't base your payment to the contractor on number of tickets issued or the revenue they generate. So like to me, a per ticket charge is an issue.
Well, and I spoke with this company last week, and they again told me, just like the other company, that it works and they could work it out, and they'll work with us on putting that into, I don't know, I won't say the ordinance, but putting it into words
Yeah, I mean,
for everybody to accept. Because
we're working on alternative ways of compensating contractors for other clients of ours. And so we can find a way to figure this out, I think, but I think that part of the issue that the contractor are facing is the law changed in 2023. And so I'm wondering if what they're doing is operating under their pre-existing pre-existing law that did not have that issue. And now it has that issue. And so either they don't know, or they're catching up, or we're trying to figure it out, but it's an issue. And so
Yes.
I don't think you can just say, yeah, no problem. We'll do that, but it won't look like we're doing that. You know what I mean? We're going to have to do something that actually complies with the law, and we can figure it out.
Okay. When I say the police department and Jeff and Denise and I, we're pushing forward with this. Trying to get as much as we can information wise. Definitely shopping around for different vendors so you can do the best for us. So it's a work in progress. We're still doing it. It's kind of, when I look up these companies that do this, boy, they have a lot of stuff they do as well as this. And you kind of have to get in there and decipher what they're actually doing. But we spoke with the vendor who sells the equipment. We have talked to 2 different providers for the software and the processing of the tickets. And I agree with what you said earlier. I don't think it's going to be that hard to do. I think it's just going to take time to learn it. There's a bunch of different steps and between sending out the first notice to, after 30 days in state, 60 days out of state, then giving them their 45 days and then keeping track of all that stuff. I know they have programs for it, but as soon as we can get on board and learn how to do this stuff, I don't think it'll be that tough either. I don't think it's rocket science, but we have to figure it out. And it's going to take a little bit of time to do that.
I think I mentioned this to Denise and to Chief Otto, but one municipality is losing money on this because of the cost of administering it and because they tried to find a way to get compensated that wasn't per ticket. And so the way they did it ended up sinking the whole program. And so they're working on another way. So we will hopefully be learning from other mistakes and not making those ourselves if you decide to implement this.
Yes. I'm aware of those, the one you're talking about, and they get some problems, and I think they're going to get them worked out. Actually, the people I spoke with last week know about the problems with this particular town, and they're trying to help them get squared away with it. But I think, we've got a model to follow. We've got other towns. I mean, there's Fort Collins, Boulder, all over the state. And these companies now, they're competing because it's becoming a big time thing where municipalities and towns are starting to do this no matter what size they are. And they're seeing it here in Colorado. Like I said, we're getting, the whole state is kind of amping up a little bit and trying to do this. And I'm glad we're not the first one. The one in particular that's having issues, don't wish any bad on them, but we're going to learn from their mistakes and we're going to make sure we get it squared away.
And there's nothing like getting a letter in the mail with your photo driving a car over the speed limit.
Yeah. And when they take a picture of the car, and I think we talked about this last time, it's just of the vehicle and the license plate. Doesn't matter who's driving. That registered owner gets the violation.
That's actually not right. Yep. There's a photo of the driver, typically, or at least the ones I've seen. And the law is the registered owner gets the ticket, but if the registered owner can prove that they weren't the one driving the vehicle, they don't get the ticket.
I don't know how, but it also says in there, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if you get a ticket and you weren't driving it, you could come in and pay it, or you could appeal it, but you're not going to be compelled to say who was actually driving the car for a $40 ticket.
That's what the law says. Yep. Yep. So, I sort of jokingly said I'm not getting a ticket in the mail because my only ticket in my entire life is a photo radar ticket. But it was in my wife's name because it was her car. And I just wrote back and said, it's not me. And the photo, you can tell it's obviously not me. And then about a week, 2 weeks later, a ticket came in the mail with my wife's name on it. Exactly the same thing. They have ways of figuring these things out. So, but yeah, the only owner of a vehicle that actually will be responsible for paying a ticket is a rental company. So if you're a renter of a vehicle, they basically, the company has to pay the fine. And then they can typically have it via their contract. They can charge the driver.
Okay. Great, thank you. Denise, you have something, please?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you can tell that there's still a lot of work that we gotta do. Tonight is really just whether you will approve this ordinance, and then we have a lot of research, and the contract is gonna be we're gonna be working on all the details, and thanks to Jeff and his expertise and the research that the chief has done, we'll make sure that it's as airtight as we possibly can. So tonight is really just about if you'll approve the ordinance or not.
Great, thank you. Yeah, Nancy, please.
Yeah, so what can the money be used for if it can't be used to basically administer the program?
I mean, it, so it just says it can't be, well, so I should give you the exact language in the statute, because honestly, I haven't fully analyzed exactly what that means, what that restriction, how that would actually work, but I would say anything else. I mean, it goes in the general fund, and if you have revenue from somewhere else, you can use it to administer the program. That's fine. It's just a matter, frankly, I understand the intent,
Yeah.
but I think it's just a matter of quick little financial funding and you're fine.
Yeah, and I think, I think we made it clear that we don't want this to be a money-making program. This is strictly for safety of our town. But obviously, we also don't want to bury our police department in administrivia. So I look forward to hearing how to crack this nut. I agree. I'm sure it can be done. We just need to take our time and do it right. So thanks.
Point of clarification on that, on page 6, excuse me, 10.26.070 vendors, it doesn't really actually spell out how we use the revenue we generated for it. Specifically more says that no portion of any fine collected through the use of an automated vehicle identification system may be paid to the manufacturer or vendor of the automatic vehicle identification system equipment. The compensation to such a vendor by the city shall be based on the value of such equipment and the value of any services provided. But it's because, so to me, and tell me if I'm wrong, it's more, the state says more that we can't, the vendor can't charge basically per ticket, but it doesn't really spell out here in my mind how we use any revenue, which we have already discussed. We wanted that to be for education and hopefully safety.
Yeah, I mean, it all.
Measures, as Mary Ann pointed out, we could use it for some safety measures.
Sure. I mean, so basically, we didn't want to limit you as to what you can use it for. We just use the statutory language for what you can't. So as long as it's not that, it's anything you want it to be.
Denise?
And Mayor, one of the things that we're gonna have to look at as we implement this is it gonna require additional staffing, right? We don't know that right now. Is finance gonna need an additional part-time person to do the collections or do those things? So as we look at this, those are all the things that we'll look at of what it will cost to run this. And then we'll be bringing that to you, because I know the real purpose is to improve safety. But we also I don't think want this to cost the general fund additional money as we move forward. So those are things that we'll need to look at.
Natalie, did you have something or? Okay,
My questions were answered. Thank you.
anything else? Any further questions or comments for the chief, Jeff or Denise?
I'd entertain a motion.
Okay,
I move to approve on first reading ordinance number 0824, and ordinance amending the Title 10 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code by the addition of a new chapter 10.26 to establish an automated vehicle identification system and schedule a second reading for, I believe, no greater than 2 weeks, or at such time that the matter can be heard. Is that?
It's the first week of October, so it's more than 2 weeks. So
Okay.
October, I believe it's first. What's that, Tuesday?
It's
Sorry.
October 1st.
October 1st.
Okay, so I amend that to say October 1st.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
motion is second. Any further discussion? Let's go ahead and vote then.
And motion carries unanimously.
Great, thank you very much. Chief, Mr. Parker, Denise, thanks for the work you've done on this. Good luck. Let's forge ahead. I think we all remember several meetings earlier this summer when we had, or at least two or three times when we had a lot of people in here complaining about traffic safety. So we're going to try and do something. We're going to try and do something that's objective and fair. I suspect it's going to take a bit of a learning curve for people to get used to this, but let's try and keep the streets safe. Thank you much. Okay, our next item of business, and actually our last item, is proposed board policy changes from the Manitou Arts, Culture, and Heritage Board. You know, Ralph Rutten here, the chair of the board. So Ralph, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ralph Roughton, 114 Palisade Circle, Chair of the Match Board. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to come for you tonight regarding a matter of importance to the Match Advisory Board. I won't waste your time rereading the entire document that you saw in the packet. I'll give you a brief overview for the next few minutes, then we can go from there. I'm here to see how you feel about making a revision to our grant guidelines. We want to address whether Tier 1 entities, which already receive guaranteed funds from Match each year totaling 66% of total revenues, also should be eligible to benefit from what we call Tier 2 competitive grants. Those Tier 2 grants are open to nonprofits and residents each year from the remaining 34% of Match tax revenues. When Match first came into being, Council decided it was fine for Tier 1 entities to benefit from Tier 2 grants, and it was not a big controversy at the time, as far as I've been able to determine. And Nancy, you were part of that.
It
but
was discussed, but I don't remember it being
It
controversial.
was not, yeah.
Yeah.
But as outlined in the packet material, other factors have since come into play. The grant requests for Tier 2 have risen steadily and have totaled over $300,000 in requests for each of the past 2 years, with about $160,000 available to distribute. Meanwhile, Match has provided more than $1.6 million in 4 years to the 5 Tier 1 entities, including more than $50,000 last year to each of the 3 nonprofits, the Manitou Arts Center, Miramont Castle, and the Manitou Springs Heritage Center. It's also safe to say that Tier 2 has become very popular among the residents here in the last 4 years. We had 23 events this year, events, projects, or programs that came back for repeat grants from previous years, and another 4 to 5 first-timers this year that expect to apply again. Just to let you know, the repeat grants include everything from the Comedy Festival to Carnival, the middle school STEAM night, that's very popular, the Imagine Art Camps, Indigenous Peoples Day, Moonlight Market, Art on the Avenue, Lantern Parade, Manitou Music Foundation events, the Blue Hands Festival, Clay Fest, we could go on and on. The new ones this year that we expect coming back in 2025 include the Manny Awards, Pride Fest, and the Pikes Peak Bulletin. We also have 20 or more new ideas every year vying for the same money. Given all that, the Match Board felt like it was time to readdress the issue of whether Tier 1 entities should be eligible for Tier 2 grants. We debated this for a long time at a meeting in May and came up with 4 options. Number one, as you saw the options in the packet, but this is the one thing that I do want to repeat. Number one is continuing as is with no changes. Number 2 is disqualifying Tier 2 project applications that tangibly benefit a Tier 1 entity. Number 3 is continuing as is with public messaging that for any Tier 2 applications tangibly benefiting a Tier 1 entity, the board may consider the application as a lower priority. And number 4, only consider Tier 2 project applications that tangibly benefit a Tier 1 organization after all other applications have been considered. The Match Board recommends, we're suggesting to go along with option 3, continuing as is, but saying we might give the tier ones a lower priority. That way, the way we're set up now and as described in the packet, we guarantee giving an initial consideration to every tier two application, especially those that benefit the broader community. An example of that would be the large mural at Hiawatha Gardens depicting its history, which has been seen and appreciated by residents and visitors alike the past 2 years. But there's no right or wrong here, and we don't want to overstep. Most of you have been on council for Match's full existence, so we know, we don't come to you often with questions such as this. We don't really feel like we need a long debate here. We just want to be sure we're on the same page. We also realize that Match might see some big changes ahead, especially with Colorado Springs voting again in November on legalizing recreational marijuana sales. Already, as you know, we're told we're on track for a 5% or more decrease in sales tax revenue this year, so we're trying to be proactive. We value our relationship with council and we want that to continue. Please let us know your thoughts on this, and I'm happy to tackle any questions you might have. Thank you.
With that, I'll open it up for council questions, comments. Judith?
First of all, I would just like to make a comment. And my comment is that you provided a 2-page white paper in your packet, in our packet. And I think it should serve as a model for other papers. You were so clear, so concise. I could read it and follow the thinking of the board. You included a definition, but you also included options and the pros and cons. So I could actually walk through in my mind what the board was thinking at the time to help us walk through this. So kudos to you on that. Are there any other examples in addition to the mural at the Hiawatha that you'd just like to cite for the public? I don't know if the public understands exactly what we're talking about with tier 2 recipients benefiting a tier 1. So could you just give some other examples of that?
We've had not a large amount, but some that have been approved and some that haven't been. There was one for a Miramont Castle that I think you all might remember from not last year, but the year before, that had to do more with behind the scenes. I mean, I'm not trying to pass judgment on it at all because the project had merit. It just wound up not being approved. Another one was on our list last year, was a potential mural on the outside on the west side wall of the Heritage Center that would have been pretty costly, but the applicant had not gone to the Heritage Center to get their support. And there was also a question whether the Heritage Center would be able, if it wasn't funded, they didn't think they had the funds to do it themselves. It was not something they had really considered. So like I say, and then we did have another mural request last year for the north side of Hiawatha Gardens building, and that was declined. And pretty much because we felt like that it was something that if the Hiawatha Gardens board or group wanted to have it, they could afford to do it with the other funds they were getting. But we started seeing enough of this that we felt like that we were heading toward the point of where we needed to address this and make it be a philosophical question again. Again, the other issue, as I just brought up, is the fact that we have had so many more, 50 or 60 applications for tier 2 grants, and that are from the community, from nonprofits and residents, and they really don't have any other way of getting match money except for that.
Thank you, Ralph. Based on what you've just said, I would be supportive of going along with what the board recommends for number 3 for one budget cycle, as you've requested. I'm also supportive of number 1 continuing as is. The only thing I would like to not see is number 2. I don't think that these requests should necessarily be disqualified because they do show a tremendous benefit to the community and also potentially support local artists. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. Other comments, questions? Nancy?
Yeah, I concur. Supporting number 3. I think that provides the flexibility that's important to this program overall, without overly benefiting anybody. And I think, the process where it's tripped us up in the past on this, I think, I remember the Miramont Castle, and it was a process issue more than anything. And it just, people were confused. So I think, again, educating the applicants as to what it means to apply, and not applying for something that's going to enhance a tier 1 project unless it's been well coordinated, and letting them know that it'd probably be a lower priority. So you might not want to put all that effort into applying if not. So anyway, I would definitely support number 3. Thanks.
Natalie?
I'm actually just going to recuse myself from this vote. I apologize for not mentioning that earlier.
Oh, that's okay. We understand. Thank you.
The only other thought I had that, once we got here and there were 2 counselors gone, was that if it wasn't going to be unanimous tonight, that I could always come back when they would be here, to get a opinion of the full group. But obviously, if everybody's on the same page, then maybe it doesn't matter so much.
It's sporting of you, Ralph. You must have been a sports editor one time. Michelle, what's your thoughts?
I support number 3.
And I also support, I think, that third option. I'm pretty comfortable with the match board. I think the last, I guess, was March when you were in here, Ralph, and you kind of walked us through the different applicants and you gave us some background insight. And so that was a condensed version of the process that I think your board has gone through. And I thought that their judgment was, collectively, your judgment has been responsible. I think it's been sympathetic to the sentiments of the community, which is it's a broad and varied community. That's not easy. So I think you found a balance point there. I'm comfortable with that. I'm frankly glad that city council doesn't have to judge art, because I don't see that as our main job. I'm glad that there's a separate board that does it. So I would happily support option 3 as well.
This is also not about just art, because from all the other events and that were on the list of the repeat applicants. That's what I think is the biggest factor that was unexpected, was having so many of these events that really don't have the organization or the depth to be able to raise a lot of money. They need help. And this has been able to help a lot of these events and projects make it.
Yeah, I'd look for a motion now.
I move to approve as our primary option for the match board number 3 as presented in the white paper presented by the match board in tonight's packet.
Second.
Seconded by Michelle. Any further discussion, council? Let's vote.
The motion carries with the 4-0 vote, with Counselor Johnson recusing herself.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, Ralph. Express our appreciation to your board. Good, thank you. Okay, we're not quite to 7 o'clock, and we've finished our business, our routine business. We now come to receive or act on council correspondence. Anybody have anything? Nancy?
Yeah, and I have to thank Ralph for reminding me of this, actually. The house up on Crystal Hills Boulevard that has been cleaned up. I've seen the police there and code enforcement several times, and the neighborhood is very appreciative of that being cleaned up because it was getting kind of scary up there. So thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Michelle?
Just a reminder, we have the Pikes Peak Ascent and Marathon this weekend.
Great. And is that the 69th running, I think?
Yes, for the marathon.
So next year we'll have a blowout too. I mean, it's important this weekend, but next year will be particularly, and it is the oldest continuous marathon in the United States. Boston Marathon lost its place during COVID. Great. So Center of Known Universe, Manatee Springs, Colorado. And council, I sent out an email this afternoon. You may or may not have had an opportunity to see it, but I wanted to get your opinion on a couple things for upcoming schedule. The school board has asked that we have a joint meeting with them. It's been a while since we've done that. They have suggested Tuesday, October the 29th. That's a fifth Tuesday. We typically would not have a meeting then, and you may have other plans. But they looked around and that was the date they came up with. They proposed that to us. The start time, if we were to do it, would be at 5:30. It would be up at the Silk Building, and they would be serving dinner, is my understanding. Is that correct? Okay. So we could do that. Kind of depends on what your druthers are, and we don't have to have a decision tonight, but please give it a little bit of thought. My other thought I wanted to ask you about was October the 1st, which would be our next regular meeting. That is also the night of the vice presidential debates. Now, last week we started an hour earlier so we could, get out and get home in time for the debate. The October 1st, we've got a couple of things on the agenda now. It looks like it could reasonably take 2 hours. If we start at 5, we might be able to get out of here by 7. So I don't know if the vice presidential debate is that significant to you, but I kind of wanted to see what you wanted to do. Kind of, Michelle, I guess you're the working person, so it's the trick for you. I personally, it doesn't matter to me, so whatever. Yeah, Nancy, go ahead.
I'm less in need of watching the vice presidential debate. It would be interesting, but I can always watch it on YouTube the next day. And I am a bit concerned that night. I don't want to rush our agenda that night since we've got a couple of what I consider to be very important topics that may require a lot of discussion.
And Mayor, while she's looking, I would be in favor of starting at 5 o'clock, just in the hopes that those of us who do have watch parties to attend, who are very, very interested in this election, be able to leave early if possible. Thank you.
Okay. And just for a little bit of clarification, the two main things we have as it stands now on the agenda are a discussion of a natural medicine ordinance and a report on special districts from the planning department. This goes back to our direction to planning to study a DDA arrangement for the city or some similar kind of arrangement. So as Mayor Pro Tem said, those could be detailed, but kind of gives you a little bit better idea.
And I apologize. I also am supportive of the 29th of October with the school.
Okay. And if people need to check schedules, we can wait. We don't need to tell them right away, but once we've had a chance for everybody to weigh in, that would be good. And obviously John and Julie won't be able to express their intents tonight. See, Natalie, what are your thoughts?
I'm comfortable with whatever. So the 5 o'clock start on the 1st is fine. And I can make the 5:30 joint meeting with council and the school work.
Okay, so, all right. Okay, Michelle?
I can meet at 5 o'clock on October 1st, and I can meet on October 29th.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so it looks like we have support for starting at 5. Let's give John and Julie a chance to weigh in as well. And I think the Mayor Pro Tem makes a good point. We don't want to rush the two things that we have, but we start an hour early. I mean, earlier we can get home an hour sooner. That might be useful. Okay, that's all I have. Anything else? Okay, let's hear from the city administrator.
Yeah, just a couple of quick things. On the 28th of this month is creek cleanup starting at 9 a.m. So please come down, join us. As you heard tonight, We collect a lot of trash in our creek, and it's great if we can have a lot of people come and join us and help clean up the Fountain Creek here. The other thing is October 3rd is the Higginbotham Master Plan meeting here in Memorial Hall starting at 6 p.m. So if you could attend that, that would be a great meeting to also attend. And that's all I have.
Can I ask you one question,
bet.
Denise? Is it October 12th, the day that we have our budget review? I noticed that
Yep.
there was a cleanup day, dumpster day. Is that-
October 12th is the recycle day, and that's the only day that we can make that work. But October 12th is our budget retreat here in City Hall starting at 8:30 in the morning.
Great. Anything else?
No, and then next week is the joint session with the planning department on September 24th for Plan Manitou. 6 p.m. Yes.
Excuse me, and Mayor or Pro Tem Fortune reminded me that we're not planning on having a meeting on October the 8th. And that would be a Tuesday. That'll be a normal work session. It'll be that Saturday instead. So we're going to skip Tuesday and work Saturday. So no meeting on October the 8th. Good. Thank you, Nancy. Anything else, Denise?
That's all. Thank you.
Okay, in that case, I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Or wait. Oh, okay, yeah, I'm sorry, and yeah, Sally Fitzgerald has prepared refreshments for us, so I guess instead of taking a break, we can have our refreshments here if we can get a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
okay. All vote.
I pushed the button too quick, but I'm assuming everybody's okay with leaving. Thank you. Okay, we're adjourned.
Adjourned. Thank you all.